Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
I recently entered my preferred local bar and grill, choosing a secluded table at the rear. I ordered a sandwich, fries, and a beer. As I sat there, I tuned into the television, which was broadcasting a PBS channel. They were discussing country music, reflecting on the old stars, many of whom are no longer with us, though a few still remain. The conversation had a somewhat somber tone as they delved into the lives of these legends. I was struck by how many of them had come from backgrounds of severe poverty. As I was enjoying my meal, I looked up and saw my good friend Bob entering with Olivia. This hit me like a ton of bricks. You see, I thought Olivia was my girlfriend. I had asked her to go out with me that night, but she said she had plans with friends and suggested we go out the next day. Olivia and I had been dating for a solid 6 months, and I thought we were exclusive. We spent almost every weekend together. I was falling hard for her, and she said she felt the same about me. We even discussed the possibility of getting engaged, but decided to wait a few more months, especially since we were dating regularly. After the TV show ended, someone played "Crazy" on the jukebox. As I listened to the lyrics, I wondered if Bob was the new guy the song referred to. The thing is, Bob knew how I felt about Olivia. I guess our bro code didn't mean much to him. I continued to listen to the song as they acted like a couple. The last verse played, "Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you." I got up from my table and approached Bob and Olivia. They looked at me, and Bob started, "Charlie, we..." I cut him off. "If I ever see you again, one of us will end up in the hospital for a long time. And as for you, Olivia, I'm deeply disappointed. Clearly, we're over. You've shown your true colors." I left the bar. The next day, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was Olivia, but I didn't feel like talking. Later, the phone rang again. This time it was Bob, so I answered, "What do you want?" Bob replied, "Charlie, I'm really sorry. You know, I've always found Olivia attractive, and when we were chatting at work, I asked her out and she said yes." I retorted, "Don't lie to me. You knew she was my girl and you asked her out anyway. How many times have you been with her?" Bob hesitated. "Charlie, it was only..." I interrupted, "How many freaking times, Bob? If you lie to me, I'll be on your case." Bob confessed, "3 times, Charlie. We've been together 3 times. We kind of developed feelings for each other." "I'm sorry." I asked, "What about Alice? Does she know you cheated on her?" "She deserves way better than you, Bob. I never want to see you again. And as for Olivia, you two deserve each other." I hung up. Alice was Bob's girlfriend, and all 3 of us, Bob, Alice, and I, worked at the same factory. There's a tale about how our paths crossed. The phone buzzed again, and it was Olivia. I decided to confront it head-on. "What's going on, Olivia?" She wanted to apologize, mentioning that Bob had asked her out multiple times and she finally agreed to go out with him once, insisting it didn't mean anything. I cut her off. "Enough with the lies. I spoke to Bob and he admitted you two were together at least 3 times. I bet it's even more than that. Was it for the money? Good riddance. You two money grubbers are perfect for each other. I want no part in this. The only person I feel bad for is Alice. She thought you and Bob were her friends. Stay out of my life and stop calling." I was raised in Kentucky, the eldest of 8 siblings. I played football in high school and, during my senior year, I received a scholarship to a college in Ohio. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches and weighing 260 pounds, I was an offensive lineman. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college, so I seized the scholarship opportunity. I aspired to be a mechanical engineer because I enjoyed working with my hands. I was somewhat introverted, but I had a soft spot for women. Having grown up with sisters, I learned to treat women with respect. My mother's advice was to treat girls the way I'd want my sisters to be treated. I became friends with a guy named Bob. He was sociable, though not athletic. He was intelligent and mentioned having some family wealth. He claimed he didn't have much now, but there might be an inheritance in the future. He was studying for a degree in business management. When I wasn't occupied with football, we'd hang out. Bob was popular with the ladies. We attended numerous parties and there was no shortage of women. I was the reserved one, yet quite a few girls showed interest in me. I have to give credit to Bob for that. My own shyness might have prevented me from initiating conversations otherwise. After graduation, I stayed in Ohio and secured a job as a mechanical engineer at Ford Motor Company. The pay was good, and I found a small apartment near the plant. I also managed to get a late-model pickup truck. Every week, I'd set aside some money and send my parents $500 monthly to help out. My father worked as a coal miner and our family bond was strong. Bob landed a job at a warehouse in the same city as the Ford plant. It turned out he was one of our suppliers. Eventually, he worked his way up to becoming the warehouse manager. We'd hang out on weekends and he revealed that he had a girlfriend at his workplace. Her name was Alice and she was in charge of inventory control. He introduced me to Alice and, let me tell you, I could have easily fallen for her right then. But Bob and I had a firm bro pact, no messing with each other's girls. It was a tough call, but I decided to honor that code. I did date a couple of girls from my own plant, but strictly as friends. I couldn't join Bob on many double dates because being around Alice stirred up feelings. She was always kind to me. Bob invited me to their plant's Christmas party. Since they were one of our suppliers, I figured why not and agreed to go. At their party, I met a stunning woman named Olivia. She had a nice figure and dressed a bit more provocatively than Alice. She was quite flirtatious. She shared that she worked with Bob and Alice, holding down a secretary job for one of the higher-ups. I told her about my job and we spent the entire night dancing. We decided to meet again and even went out with Bob and Alice for New Year's Eve. Alice made some comments about being happy for me finding someone, but the sincerity was lacking. That night, I took Olivia back to my place. She was, well, quite impressive, if you get my drift. The next morning, Olivia seemed surprised that I was living in a modest apartment. I clarified to her that my job was still new and I was managing fine with what I had, especially since I was also sending money back home to support my family. I assured her that I would focus on material possessions someday, but not right now. She asked about Bob's family wealth, and considering he was my best friend, I confirmed it and added that they had funded his education. Our dating journey continued, and we were out almost every weekend. My feelings for her were growing deeper, and she reciprocated those feelings. We did a lot of things together, and yes, the intimate moments were a highlight. However, I must admit, her flirtatious behavior and constant talk about material possessions didn't sit well with me. I tried to reassure her that we could build a good life together. Still, when we went on double dates with Bob and Alice, things felt unbalanced. There was a certain tension between us, and I couldn't quite pinpoint it. Fast forward, Olivia and I had been together for about half a year. We talked about our future, possibly even getting engaged eventually. Olivia suggested we didn't need to rush decisions. We went to a county fair, and at one of those budget jewelry stands, I bought Olivia a friendship ring. I told her it signified that she was mine until she felt ready to take the engagement step. She smiled when she put it on. By the way, I should mention that I hit the gym after work about 3 days a week. I had managed to slim down to 230 pounds and felt pretty good about how I looked. Then came that moment at the country bar and grill. I must admit, seeing my girl and best friend kissing really hit me hard. After I spotted them at the restaurant and had a phone conversation, I cut all ties with both of them. Even though I was furious, I did feel quite bad for Alice. 2 weeks went by, and my phone rang. "Charlie, I'm so sorry about you and Olivia. I thought she might have messed up, but I never thought it'd be with Bob." "What's the deal, Alice? Are you saying there were others?" "At work, I noticed her having lunch with her boss, Brad. It seemed like a regular thing. I thought about telling you but didn't want to hurt you in case I was wrong. Then I found out about Olivia and Bob. When I found out, I immediately broke up with him. I cut ties with both of them. It's a bit tough seeing them together at work, but I keep myself busy. Alice, thanks for reaching out. I was worried about you. You're one of my closest friends. Maybe we can catch up sometime." "I'd be up for that, Charlie. Good to chat with you." After our talk, I wasn't sure if I felt better or worse. A couple of weeks passed, and one evening while I was at the supermarket, I ran into Alice. "Hey, Charlie, nice to see you. How's everything going?" "Pretty good, and you? Back in the dating game?" She gave me a smile. I've turned down quite a few date offers because I've got my sights set on someone special. I don't want to jeopardize things if he decides to reach out. Oh, I'm sorry, I was actually going to ask you if you'd like to. Yes, I'd love to go out with you. You're the one I was hoping would ask. So when and where should we meet? I need to know how to dress. I was thinking about Saturday, hitting up my favorite country bar and grill. We said our goodbyes, and I confirmed that I'd pick her up at 6. When I arrived at her place, she was dressed in a Western style, jeans, a vest, a cowgirl hat, and boots. She looked amazing. I opened the truck door, and she hopped in. Saturdays at the place featured a country western band and singer. We grabbed a booth and ordered a couple of beers. The band wasn't starting for another hour, giving us time to chat. I was surprised to discover she was originally from Kentucky, just a county over from where I grew up. She went to college there, applied for jobs, and eventually landed a job at the supply plant in Ohio. We placed our food order. I went for a double bacon cheeseburger and fries, while she opted for a Reuben sandwich, and we shared the fries. It felt really nice to reconnect with her. She did inquire if this was the same bar where I caught Bob and Olivia. I confirmed that it was indeed the place, but I wasn't going to let a couple of cheaters ruin my favorite hangout spot. She just gave me a smile in response. Once the band started playing, we got up to dance. They kicked things off with 2 slow songs to encourage couples onto the dance floor. Their playlist always featured the classic hits, that's what the crowd wanted to hear. They switched to a faster tune, and both of us sat out. I mentioned to Alice that I wasn't much into the fast dances, but I enjoyed watching the women move. They played a couple of Roy Orbison tunes, and I always had a soft spot for his music. Following that, they performed a few songs by Loretta Lynn. Alice and I took to the floor for the slow ones. The announcer called the ladies up for some line dancing, and a few guys even joined them. Why not join the line dancing? I playfully asked Alice. You just want to check out my big A, she teased, smiling as she got up to join the other women. The line dancing started, and I couldn't help but keep my eyes on Alice. She looked right at me and gave her booty a little shake. I grinned and even clapped for her. After the song wrapped up, she came over with a smile, and I leaned in to kiss her. Pulling back, I apologized. I'm not sorry, she replied, kissing me again. We had a blast dancing and enjoying a few beers. Time flew by way too quickly. They announced that the last song was up next. I held Alice close as we swayed to the music. As the song ended, I leaned in and planted a kiss on her lips. I dropped her off at her place and asked if she'd like to go out again the next Saturday. I suggested we could visit Cedar Point, a big amusement park in Ohio. She happily agreed, and we exchanged a goodnight kiss. I didn't want to rush things on our first date. I felt fantastic at work the entire week. On Friday, I gave Alice a call to confirm our plans for Saturday. She mentioned she'd heard about the park but hadn't been there before. On Saturday morning, I picked her up, and we set off for the park. During the drive, we chatted, and I brought up the topic of whether she had mentioned to Bob or Olivia that we were dating. She told me she hadn't spoken to either of them about it. We had an amazing time riding all the roller coasters and trying out various other rides. The park also had a bunch of shows that we caught. On our way back, we decided to grab dinner at a Texas Roadhouse. By the time we reached home, we were both pretty exhausted. Alice shared her place with a roommate named Joan, a friendly lady likely in her 50s who worked at a retail store. Alice appreciated having a roommate as Joan treated her like family, and they had a close bond. I let Alice know that I would be away the following weekend, but expressed my desire to see her the week after. She responded that I should call her once I got back. After sharing a kiss, I confessed to her that I truly cared for her. She reciprocated by saying she had always been fond of me as well. Once I got home, I immediately called her and invited her to a significant dinner event. My boss was hosting an anniversary celebration for himself and his wife at the Hilton Hotel. I explained to Alice that I had booked a hotel room for the night due to the anticipated drinking. I understood if she wasn't comfortable attending. Her response was positive. Charlie, I'd be delighted to go with you. We won't need 2 beds, you know. I want you to know I'm falling in love with you. Just promise to be honest and not lead me on. I assured her that I would never harm her and would protect her from anyone else who tried. I asked Alice if we could use her car, as I'd rather not show up at a fancy event in my truck. She agreed, and said she'd let her roommate Joan know she wouldn't be home that night. I parked my truck at her place, and we decided to use her car for the event. We arrived early, intending to get ready at the hotel. During our ride, Alice mentioned that she was considering finding a new job due to her discomfort from regularly seeing Bob and Olivia. She even shared a rumor that Olivia might be pregnant. For the party, I got dressed in the bathroom, wearing a tuxedo. When I came out of the bathroom, Alice looked stunning. She wore a form-fitting blue dress that accentuated her figure, and her hair flowed down to her shoulders. She had an elegant yet enticing presence. "You look absolutely gorgeous." "I might not even care about the party itself," I remarked. Her response was playful, "Oh no, you don't. I didn't go through all this effort just to change again." She said it with a smile, and we headed downstairs to the party. Upon our arrival, my boss and his wife greeted us. He introduced his wife and extended a warm welcome to the party. As they moved away, I noticed him stealing glances at Alice. Knowing many of the attendees, I introduced Alice to the people I knew. She received numerous compliments. We grabbed some drinks and found a table. The event had an array of appetizers, with plans for a dinner later on. Alice recognized a couple of women she was familiar with. Her role in inventory control put her in regular contact with these women. I approached the head of human resources, Mary, and initiated a conversation. "Mary, are there any job openings in inventory control or the supply chain?" "As a matter of fact, there is. Janice is retiring next month, and I've been tasked with finding her replacement. Do you have anyone in mind?" "Actually, my date, you've met her, Alice, is searching for a new job opportunity. She currently handles inventory control. She enjoys her work but is ready for a change. Tell her to come see me on Monday, and I'll schedule an interview for her. She's quite a striking woman." "Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate it." "I bet you do," Mary responded with a chuckle. The party was a great success. I had a few dances with the employees' wives, and Alice had her turn dancing with their husbands. However, most of the time, we were dancing together. The dinner spread was absolutely superb, offering choices like roast beef, chicken, or shrimp, along with all the accompanying dishes. After a couple more drinks, we bid our good nights to the host and headed up to our hotel room. "Alice, are you absolutely sure about this? I don't want you to think I'm trying to take advantage of you." "Charlie, stop overthinking and just be with me," she replied, helping her out of her dress. We neatly hung it up along with my tuxedo. We pulled down the covers on the bed and, well, you know. I turned off the lights, and we snuggled in close, falling asleep together. The last words I heard before drifting off were, "I love you, Charlie." I woke up to the aroma of fresh coffee. Alice had taken a shower, gotten dressed, and even brewed us each a cup of coffee. "Morning, Charlie. Sleep well?" "It's been a while," I responded. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, both Alice and I went down to the dining room for a pleasant breakfast. Among the fellow employees, we saw quite a few familiar faces, all with smiles on their faces. "Looks like we've become a known couple," I mentioned to Alice. Mary, the HR person, stopped by our table on our way out and told Alice, "See you Monday," before leaving with a smile. "What was that about?" Alice questioned. "I forgot to tell you that you've got an interview with Mary on Monday at Ford," I said with a grin. "Remember, you mentioned considering a job change." Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, "Charlie, I hope this isn't a dream. I love you so much." We chatted on our way back home. "Alice, I hope I'm not rushing things, but in 2 weeks, I'm planning to visit my parents in Kentucky. I'd love for you to come along. I'll be leaving on Friday evening and returning on Sunday. We can also make a stop to see your parents if you'd like. I'd be happy to join you, but my parents are a bit traditional, and we might not be sharing a bed." "I'm confident things will fall into place," I answered. Final update, we set off for our trip to Kentucky. Alice mentioned the latest rumor about Bob and Olivia planning to get married next month due to Olivia's visible pregnancy. I believe Olivia thinks she's marrying into wealth, but she'll soon realize it's not Bob who's well off, but his parents. Bob may live lavishly, but it's mostly based on debt, I shared with her. Upon arriving at my parents' home, we were greeted by a spacious old farmhouse with numerous bedrooms and bathrooms. My siblings who still resided there came out to welcome us, followed by Mom and Dad. I embraced everyone and introduced Alice, who received warm hugs from them all. We spent a couple of hours chatting. I knew my family would adore Alice. She was looking at the photos on the wall, particularly one of me in my football uniform from my younger days. I noticed tears in her eyes. "What's wrong, are you all right? Do you recall that time when you were playing football at Grayling during an away game? After the match, you walked through the tunnel, and there were two guys attempting to drag a girl in a yellow sweater into the tunnel. You confronted one of the guys, threw him down, and then tackled the other. You warned them that if they ever bothered the girl again, you'd return to finish what you started. Then you walked away into the locker room." "Yeah, I remember that incident, but I've never shared it with anyone." "How did you come to know about it?" "Charlie, I was that girl. I never saw your face, just the number 67 on your jersey. I tried to find you afterward, but no one knew who you were. I managed to discover that your name was Charles, but that was the extent of my knowledge. I had been waiting by the tunnel for my friend when two men grabbed me, dragged me into the tunnel, and expressed their intention to have some fun. I yelled at them to let me go. That's when you appeared. They never bothered me again." She leaned in and kissed me. "There was something about you that felt familiar the first time I met you when Bob introduced us. The only positive thing I can say about Bob is that he introduced us. My mom had prepared a bed for Alice and informed me that I could sleep in the basement where there was an extra bed. Around 1 in the morning, Alice joined me. We shared a quiet, intimate moment, though it was a bit challenging due to the circumstances, and she returned to her bed about an hour later. On Saturday, we visited Alice's family. She hadn't mentioned that her parents were well off. They had a beautiful house, and Alice had two younger and attractive sisters. They were a few years younger than Alice. She introduced me as her boyfriend. I overheard Sandy, one of her sisters, telling Alice that I looked quite handsome. We went inside and chatted for a while. Hank, her father, inquired about my job and background. He had his concerns about his little girl, as he affectionately referred to her. "Mr. Carter, I'd like to talk to you about marrying your daughter. I'm here to ask for your blessing." Alice and I hadn't discussed this beforehand, so she seemed surprised and teary-eyed as she looked at me. Even though we haven't been together for a long time, our love is strong, and we believe we can build a great life together in marriage. "Charlie, I appreciate that you came to talk to me, though you didn't have to. You should know by now that Alice follows her heart." "Alice, do you love Charlie?" "Yes, Daddy, I truly do with all my heart." "Then you have my blessing on one condition. You two must get married here in Kentucky so your mom and I can give you a proper wedding. Oh, and we'll cover the expenses." I surprised everyone when I took out an engagement ring from my pocket, knelt down on one knee, and proposed to Alice. She said yes, kissed me, and then rushed over to kiss her dad and embrace her mom, who was shedding tears of joy. We all stood up and enjoyed a fantastic chicken dinner together. We went back to my parents' house and mentioned to the Carters that we'd keep them updated about our future plans. When we shared the news of our engagement with Mom and Dad, they were absolutely thrilled. Many of my relatives who still live nearby were coming over for a barbecue. Dad proudly claimed the role of grill master, while Mom prepared the meat and other dishes inside. Alice offered to help in the kitchen. She mentioned she enjoyed cooking too. All my relatives came by to greet me and get acquainted with Alice. She was the first woman I'd brought home to meet the family, and they all assured me that she was a keeper and encouraged me to make her happy. After a day of lively celebration, we bid farewell to our relatives and promised to inform them of our wedding date just before we headed to bed. Alice whispered to me that my mom had warned her about an obstacle on the stairs. It turned out she accidentally kicked a pair of shoes, and they tumbled down the stairs. Alice tried to apologize, but Mom reassured her, saying she had been young once and that Alice's lively spirit was probably why she ended up with so many children. Alice did come back downstairs again, and we shared a quiet and intimate moment together. We tried to keep things hushed, but you know how that goes. She didn't head back upstairs until nearly 5 in the morning. After a night of intimacy, we drifted off to sleep. In the morning, Mom and Alice exchanged knowing smiles. We all had a hearty country breakfast, then said our goodbyes with hugs and kisses before making our way home. Alice had her meeting with the HR department on Monday. By the following day, she received a call from Mary, who informed her that she was successful in her job application and could hand in her 2-week notice. She rang me to share the good news, but I was already aware. We decided to commemorate the occasion by dining out at my preferred country bar that evening. At the restaurant, we both opted for steak dinners. Alice brought up that Bob and Olivia were vacationing that week and would be heading to Las Vegas to get married the following week. She expressed that it was the most pleasant 2 weeks she had spent at the plant since she didn't have to interact with Bob and Olivia. She mentioned that although everyone was disappointed to see her go, they understood that she was pursuing a better opportunity. Working at Ford implied access to some of the region's best-paying jobs. Alice was grateful for the interview opportunity in the job offer, which she felt she deserved. Our relationship and engagement were kept a secret from everyone else. She disclosed that she left an unsigned, anonymous note on Bob's desk before leaving. The note suggested he consider a DNA test once the baby was born, considering his wife's frequent lunches with her boss. The note ended with congratulations. From her first day at our workplace, she always greeted guys who asked her out with a radiant smile, proudly showing off her engagement ring and making it clear that she was engaged to me. They wisely chose not to overstep any boundaries. Alice mentioned that Joan was helping her plan the wedding. Joan, who had a married daughter of her own, played the role of a supportive guardian. She and Alice became close friends and roommates, sharing expenses. I made sure to visit a few times each week to help wherever necessary. I contacted my mom and requested a list of relatives and friends to invite from our side of the family. My mom went above and beyond, purchasing invitations and taking care of sending them out for us. I gave her the wedding date, which was scheduled for 4 months later. Alice also spoke to her mom and shared the wedding date with her. Her parents were responsible for finding a suitable church and a large venue for the reception. Her mom volunteered to send out invitations to their side of the family. Given her dad's business background, he had many connections and clients. While I was quite nervous about everything, I was actually contributing the least. I asked several colleagues at work if they would be interested in attending the wedding in Kentucky, and many surprisingly said they would attend. Thanks to Joan's connections at the retail store, she arranged for a dressmaker for Alice's wedding gown. Joan also confirmed that she and her daughter would be attending the event. Sophie, Alice's mother, called and informed us that she had secured a caterer, but mentioned that she would need a headcount closer to the wedding date. Sophie also mentioned that her husband Hank had arranged for a talented band. It seemed like everything was coming together. I asked Alice if she thought we were going overboard with the preparations. It was clear that this wedding was going to be expensive. Charlie, this grand wedding idea is entirely my parents' vision. They've dreamed of this kind of wedding since we were little girls. Trust me, my sisters will be having similarly lavish weddings. Why didn't you ever tell me you came from a wealthy background? I kept my family's financial background hidden because I wanted you to be interested in me for who I am. Just for your information, only Joan is privy to this information, not even Bob is aware. Does this revelation alter anything for you? No, my interest lies in you as an individual, not anything else. If you wish, I'm open to signing a prenuptial agreement. Charlie, there's no need for a prenup. I believe we'll be together forever. Besides, I don't have much wealth at the moment, maybe in the future through inheritance, but not much now. I'll have a supportive husband to stand by me. Alice arranged her wedding party lineup. Her father would escort her down the aisle, her older sister would act as the maid of honor, while her younger sister would be a bridesmaid. She invited my 2 married sisters to be bridesmaids as well. My brothers-in-law would be my groomsmen and my single brothers would be paired with her sisters. It turned out that my younger brother would be my best man. My niece and nephew were selected as the flower girl and ring bearer respectively. We reached out to them all and they happily accepted. Thankfully, it truly became a family affair. Alice was flourishing in her new job and everyone admired her. She was well liked by her colleagues. What's not to like? A dilemma arose since she had only worked there for 4 months, she hadn't accrued any vacation days. We brainstormed and considered the option of heading down on Friday night, getting married on Saturday, and returning on Sunday. It would be a whirlwind, but with limited choices, it seemed doable. Just 2 weeks before the wedding, the plant manager called me into his office. We had a good rapport and he even mentioned that he was planning to attend the wedding. Hey Charlie, I heard you're dealing with an issue around the time of your wedding. Mary mentioned that you're leaving on Friday, tying the knot on Saturday, and returning on Sunday. Is that right? Yeah, Mark, that's the plan. Alice doesn't have any vacation days left. Well, Charlie, make sure you let your lovely wife know that we're granting her personal time from Thursday all the way through the next week. Also, I've got 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a honeymoon gift. Thanks, Mark. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. I shook his hand and contacted Alice in her office to inform her that we're going out for lunch. I told her I had something important to discuss. While at the restaurant, Alice asked, "What's up, Charlie? What's this thing you want to talk about?" Mark called me into his office and informed me that they're giving you time off from Thursday to the entire following week. We don't have to rush to get there or hurry back. And wait, there's more. He gave us 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a wedding gift. I placed the tickets on the table. Naturally, my Alice started tearing up. We had everything ready for the wedding and we could head down on Thursday, which made things simpler for us. Rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner took place on Friday. I checked with my dad if he needed money and he shared that he had kept aside the money I sent him since we announced the wedding. I really admired and respected that man. After the dinner, I gave Alice a kiss and let her know I'd be seeing her the next day. Alice had informed her mom about the number of people attending both the wedding and the reception. She didn't tell me the count, mentioning that I was already nervous enough. I knew all my siblings, aunts, uncles, and their families would be present. I heard that the motels in both counties had been fully booked for months. I hoped that our guests were able to find accommodations. On Saturday morning, I woke up and my mom insisted I have breakfast. I couldn't go through the whole day on an empty, anxious stomach. During our breakfast conversation, Mom mentioned that they had met the Carters and found them to be really friendly people who thought highly of me. After breakfast, I took a long shower and shaved. I got dressed in my tuxedo, a white one to match Alice's dress. My brothers were also there, wearing black tuxedos. All 4 of them were part of the wedding party. It was time to head to the church. The church was located in the neighboring county, but it was only 20 miles away. The church was quite large, and my brother mentioned that it could accommodate more than 600 people. As the guests began to arrive, my brothers and I helped them find their seats as they walked in. They said I didn't have to assist, but I insisted on doing something. Joan and her daughter showed up, and I directed them to sit with the families on Alice's side. I was seating relatives whom I hadn't seen in years. I was happy to spot some of my coworkers at the event. My boss, Mark, and his wife had flown in for the occasion. I was then instructed to go to the front of the church because Alice's limousine had arrived, and I wasn't supposed to see her before the ceremony. I went up to chat with my parents briefly. A woman began playing some music on the organ. After a couple of songs, an announcement was made for the guests to take their seats as the wedding was about to start. Every wedding has its unique touches, and I walked to the front and stood beside the minister. The first one to walk down the aisle was Sandy, accompanied by my brother. They made a great-looking pair. They both went up to the front and took their positions. Following them was Marie, who came down with my other single brother. After that, my married brothers walked down with their wives. One of my nephews then came down as the ring bearer, while I held the actual wedding ring in my pocket. 2 men rolled out a white cloth, and my niece strolled down the aisle, scattering rose petals. The music shifted, and everyone stood up. The wedding march began, and Alice was making her way down the aisle, escorted by her very proud father. She looked incredibly beautiful, like an angel. I could feel tears streaming down my face. Who presents this woman to this man? Her mother and I, her father replied. We exchanged our vows. I placed the ring on her finger, and then I was given the go-ahead to kiss the bride, which I did. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Charles Jones. Everyone stood up and applauded. We, along with the rest of the wedding party, stood at the church entrance, expressing our thanks to everyone who had attended. It took over half an hour for the church to empty out as people departed. They all made their way to the rented hall. Upon our arrival at the hall, there were drinks and appetizers available for everyone. A band was playing, though not many were dancing at that moment. Tables had been set up all around. As we entered, the entire crowd rose and cheered for us. We took our seats. Mr. Carter spoke a few words and then announced that the food was ready. The serving tables were set up on both sides, ensuring everyone got their food quickly. Although Alice and I were served first, we probably finished eating last as we kept pausing to kiss every 10 seconds in response to the glass clinking. Some of the tables were moved back from the dance floor to make more room for dancing. Alice and I were the first couple to hit the dance floor, followed by the rest of the wedding party, and then everyone joined in. The reception went on for a solid 4 hours. Some guests even helped themselves to another round of food. It was truly a fantastic night. Epilogue, we had a wonderful time during our cruise. It was a wise decision to bring my truck to the wedding. I rented a small U-Haul and loaded it up with all the gifts we had received. When we returned home, we started looking for a new house. Eventually, we found a nice 3-bedroom home with a hot tub. We spent a couple of weeks at my small apartment initially, but Alice felt we needed something a bit more spacious. We decided to leave the gifts we brought back at Joan's house since we wouldn't be living there. We checked if she could manage on her own, and she assured us she didn't have any financial troubles. She simply enjoyed taking care of Alice, but now that responsibility was shared with me. Every evening, we'd work on writing thank you cards. I believe we're just about finished with that now. We also have lunch together at work around 3 times a week. It's been 3 months since the wedding, and things are going really well. We haven't had any arguments, and we always discuss and resolve any differences we have. We've always been told that communication is key, which is something we actively practice. Alice mentioned that one of her friends from another workplace called her, and Olivia discovered that Bob is in financial trouble with a lot of debt. There was also a rumor that someone advised Bob to consider a DNA test when Olivia has the baby. However, they're uncertain about the source of that information. A few weeks passed, and then Alice received another phone call informing her about some issues going on with Bob and Olivia. It turns out Bob took a DNA test and it confirmed that he wasn't the father. Isn't that just wild? Thanks for reading my story. The part about the country music is true. I actually saw it on PBS. The end.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.